Welcome to Paper Quest. I'm Jessie.
And I'm James.
And we're two friends teaming up in our ongoing quest through the infinite library.
Each episode, we get together to discuss our latest buddy read, swap stories on our recent solo reads, and talk about the upcoming books we look forward to reading next.
This is Paper Quest.
Okay, so I have no new books that I've read this week or last week. I finished Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm reading our next episode's book, but I haven't gotten very far. And I'm going to read the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. But I am not currently reading anything, so you can take the mic.
Okay, so I read a lot.
Yes.
I don't know what happened. Well, read and listened to. So we're going to go through it real quick. I listened to Heartless by Melissa Meyer. And Heartless is a Alice in Wonderland retelling, but it focuses on the Queen of Hearts origin story.
Now, is this the Disney series that has the minimalist covers and stuff? Is it part of that book series?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think Melissa Meyer does retellings just as part of her how she writes books. But it was a unique perspective, which I love in any retelling. And it's basically Catherine, who ends up eventually being the Queen of Hearts. All she wants to do is grow up and be a baker. And things in her life just go every which way she doesn't want it to go.
Okay.
And she kind of, if you've ever seen the Disney version, she kind of descends into that crazy queen.
She grows up wanting to be a baker in Wonderland, or she starts on Earth?
No, they're in Wonderland the whole time.
Okay.
And it's interesting because I think it is one narrator in the... Yeah, I think it's one narrator in the audio version, but she does, the King of Hearts is huh? He's this little dopey thing. She does all of those voices.
Okay.
And so it's really good, and there's new characters, but there's, the Knave of Hearts, there's that rhyme, the Knave of Hearts stole some tarts.
I'm unfamiliar with that rhyme, but I believe it.
I think it's probably in the original Alice in Wonderland.
Okay.
Book. So yeah, really interesting. I would definitely recommend. I also read A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair.
I know that name. Okay.
This is the Persephone and Hades story, which I am always all about. I've talked about these characters before. It's the same premise. Persephone is hidden her whole life by her mother, but this is set in current day, and she basically gets her mom to agree to let her go to human college in human glamour.
Oh, that's why I know, because you described this to me already. Okay, yeah, I remember this one.
And after she gets her internship, even though she's a goddess and has, the world at her fingertips, she's super, super excited for this journalist internship. And so her roommate, who's a human, doesn't know she's a goddess, takes her out to a nightclub, and she accidentally meets and makes a bargain with Hades.
Okay.
Not knowing that it's Hades.
Small world, got it.
Right. And so, of course, they eventually, fall in love like the myth. It was good. I got there's two more in the series, and I plan to read them. It did end on a cliffhanger, and so it was interesting. I've read other Persephone's Hades retellings that I would say are better.
Okay.
I am currently listening to The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. And that is basically about a Southern housewife named Patricia Campbell, who is bored to tears of her life. This is the 90s. And she starts going to book club. And they're not reading the classics like the other book clubs in town. They are reading Ted Bundy biographies and slasher books and cult books and things like that. And luckily, when weird stuff starts happening in her town, she uses all that knowledge to figure out what's going on. And I haven't finished it yet, but the author was noted as saying she wanted to see what a fight between her Southern book club going mama and Dracula would look like. So I can only assume that it's Dracula.
Okay. And you finished this one, or you're listening to it?
I'm listening to it. I'm like...
Because that sounds like a fun one.
Yeah, I'm like 60% done, and it's good so far.
Okay, excellent.
All right, just a couple more. I read the third Wild Mountain Scots book, which we talked about last time, which are these romance novels that are set in Scotland. This one was basically like, because they all have, like, you meet the character in the previous book type of thing. Mm-hmm. So this was the best friend of the main girl in the second book, and...
So it's kind of Bridgerton style.
Yes.
Okay.
And she basically comes to visit and had met one of the males in the book in America when they were over there. She goes to Scotland to visit her friend who's now married and living there, sees who she thinks is the same guy, and runs up and gives him a big hug and stuff, but it's his twin brother. And so she kind of upsets people and then has to, like, figure out who she actually has feelings for. And it was okay. Not as good as the first two.
That would be an interesting scenario in which there's just identical twins.
Yes. And then I read 2 books. It's a Zodiac Wolves series by Elizabeth Briggs. And it's a very standard shifter series. There's a girl who's kind of outcast, and she's in a werewolf pack already. She's the alpha's daughter, of course, but...
Obviously.
She's half human, and so they hate her. The difference here, which is why I was interested, is each pack is aligned with a zodiac sign.
Yep.
So her original pack is the Cancer pack, and they have, like, armor. Basically.
Until I met you, I had no idea how many books you use zodiacs as part of the story. You love your zodiac symbols.
I do.
Signs.
And I will say, I'm a little hurt because the bad guys in the book are Leos, and I'm a Leo. And they also kind of have a stupid power, which is, like, they have a lion's roar that, like, immobilizes people, but they're wolves.
This book is a hard pass for me.
I'm just not into it. But like all the water signs, so like Pisces, I'm probably getting it wrong. Cancer though is a water sign, and they can breathe underwater. So again,
you're gonna get Aquarius wrong, and you know all the zodiac stuff.
Maybe. I'm just scared. People get real defensive about zodiac signs. But like, can you just picture a wolf that can also be like a mermaid? For a second.
I can. It's not great. It's not pretty.
It's also very adult, and I didn't realize that when I started reading it. I thought it was like standard YA, but it gets spicy, and the scenes are long. Oh. Like, I'm like, why are we still talking about this? Like, let's go to the next thing. So they're not like, it's not the most amazing shifter book I've ever read in my life, but it's entertaining.
Okay.
So, yeah. I read a lot, and next week I'm going to read nothing, so we'll see.
Yeah, maybe we'll switch. Most of the reason why I haven't read any books is because I've been catching up on a ton of Doctor Who audio dramas, which kind of piled up the last few months, so maybe next time we'll see what I've come across. Yeah. Our next book after this should be a pretty unique and easy read given the way it's set up, but I'm hoping that I'll fit a few extra books in because our next book should be pretty easy.
Awesome. Well, we're going to jump in then to
our part 2 of our book swap, which, you know, when I was editing our first episode, we never once mentioned that it was a book swap. We just said, so Hitchhiker's Guide, you like this book? And I was like, oh yeah, I was writing the Facebook post and I was like, you know what our podcast doesn't say? Anything about the book swap. So this is book 2, or book swap part 2. She read my favorite book, Hitchhiker's Guide, and now I read
Carpe Diem by Autumn Cornwell. And this is a book that I've literally read like 10 times since it came out in 2007 when I was the age of the main character in the book. So
I'm trying to picture 2007. I want to say that's like when the final Harry Potter book came out. I'm almost positive.
That seems right. You were still in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah,
I
okay,
was
this
too.
book goes back.
Yeah. So, we'll start spoiler-free, a little summary. When Vassar Spore makes a plan, it's as good as done. Vassar plans to graduate as valedictorian from high school, get a PhD from an Ivy League university, marry a 6'5" blonde surgeon or judge, have 3 children, write a book, and receive a Pulitzer all before 40. That is until an unexpected phone call from her grandmother sends her halfway across the world. Now Vassar's plan is to figure out what secret her family's been hiding from her, write an epic novel to ensure her valedictorian status, and survive the summer with someone who has no plan. And like I said, I have read this almost annually for at least a decade.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the same question you asked me on my book. What kept you coming back to it? Why is it a top list?
You mentioned it at the end of our last podcast, but I definitely relate to the main character a lot. I am super type A. I am super into lists and plans. And literally my child has said, like, we don't always need a plan, Mom. And I'm like, but we do. We really do. And I get very stressed when there isn't a plan. Even if, so I made like a daily plan. I showed my husband the other day. And in the plan, I wrote, no plan for like an hour. Because I wanted that hour to be free. But like, I got to plan it.
Oh my God. That's great. I love it. I mean, I'm not surprised. It's just hilarious.
But I also, they talk a lot about living in the moment. And I want that. Like, I see people who can do that. And I'm like, that looks great. Mm-hmm. I want to know how to do that. I don't know how to do that yet. But every time I read it, I'm like, yes, that sounds wonderful.
Well, one day you'll grow up.
Maybe.
All right. Well, I asked you that question, but I knew, it's like I read the first 2 pages and I was like, I know the answer. I know why this is her favorite book. This isn't.
I said that too, though.
Uh-huh.
I was like, as soon as you look at it, you're going to be like, yeah. That's
I was
Jessie.
like, okay. She thinks she's in this story. Yeah. Thoroughly. I, of course, had no, initial judgments or thoughts about the book. So I was going into it pretty blind. I knew travel was involved. And I guessed to some degree that, because it was your favorite book, there was going to be something planny or, like you read the description to me off podcast before we read the book. And like I kind of got where it was going, like all the plans about the future and everything's set up for perfection. And I got it. But I was like, yeah, this will be a good read. And I ended up thoroughly enjoying it. I thought it was very good.
That makes me so happy.
I did the audio because I think I was reading something at the same time.
How was the audio?
But
I've never listened to it.
the audio is actually what really made it for me. I mean, the book, period, is good. And it's just one woman doing the audiobook, but she's very peppy, and she has very good voices for all the characters, especially the 3 best friends.
Oh, yeah.
Have you watched Turning Red yet?
I have not yet.
There's also 3 friends in that movie, and one of them is just this more like morbid chick. Mm-hmm. And she made one of the friends in the book sound just like her. So I kept picturing her, and I was just like, oh God, this is just like Growing Red. Turning Red, whatever the movie's called.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, I loved every voice she did. I loved every time that what's her name?
Vassar?
I loved every time that Vassar was annoyed and then Grandma came on with her peppy voice and she was like, no big deal, so happy, you don't need this stuff. I'm just like, yeah. Oh, this author or this narrator's doing it for me.
I'm so glad. We've talked about this before, and I was thinking about it as I was writing my notes. The pace of this book is the pace of books I want to read.
Yes.
I actually looked, like you knew where we were going in the first chapter. Like you were like, oh, I know who this character is. I know who her parents are. Oh, her parents are being blackmailed, which is not a spoiler. It's on the book. And she's traveling across the world, within 8 pages. And that's what pace I like.
Well, and what I liked about it was, I mean, I wouldn't say it's everything all rolled in one, but it had some really like, it had some favorite things for me. Like, definitely a travel adventure novel.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely had a mystery, like a through-line mystery of, like, what's the blackmail? How intense is it? Did they do something illegal? Like, what's going on? Like, what did your parents do? Your parents, they're so freaking perfect and so anal. What could they have possibly done to another member of the family that warrants them letting you go halfway across the world when they just didn't want you to 5 seconds ago?
Yeah. When they wouldn't let her go to a school dance down the road.
Yep.
At the public school. Gasp.
Oh, yeah. Gasp. Public school. Yeah. Yeah, that was great. We can jump into spoilers and start talking about some characters, some places, some things.
I would love to.
Okay. Let's start with the wonderfully named Vassar Spore.
Yeah. Spore is a horrible name, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know where that last name comes from. That's really strange.
So Vassar is, like, both her parents are type A. Like, you know, I think at one point her dad's like, I will be there in 8 minutes.
He literally gets it. It's almost comical. The dad's like, so many minutes and 31 seconds. I'm like, you ain't timing seconds. This is comical. Like, you're anal.
Yeah. Well, the dad is writing a book called How to Increase Your Personal Productivity in 2,000 Easy Steps.
It felt like, in no negative terms, borderline like I was reading an adult cartoon. Like an adult animated, like I was just like, okay, this dad is from some Nickelodeon show. Like
it is. So when I looked it up today, I was trying to like get some information. And it's actually written for, I think, 7th to 12th grade.
Okay.
So I think that makes a little bit.
I mean, that's a decent gap of age group.
Yeah, well, I guess, 7th grade, you're like 12, and the book's about a 16-year-old, so I can kind of see that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think having that like overly dramatic piece, like how does a 16-year-old look at their parents? You know, like they are over the top. And so I don't know, I appreciated that and thought it was funny.
And Vassar gets all her craziness from her dad as far as the anal planning.
Yeah. Well, and her mom was a life coach, quit being a life coach just to take care of, she became a Vassar coach, I think she calls herself at one point. And her whole goal, like they named her Vassar so she could go to Vassar College or University.
Yeah, she was named after a school, which is, was a first.
Because the mom didn't get into Vassar. Or didn't have anyone to push her to get into Vassar.
I just don't know how I would feel being named after a school. That's a first.
She just worked it into her plan. She was like, get an honorary, plaque for being at Vassar named Vassar.
Yeah, I mean, she was really planning on, like, destiny working out or something. Like, she...
and she finds out she's going on this trip, and she is eavesdropping, and, she basically finds out that there's, like, or she hears parts of the conversation, so it's, like, ball, bubble, birth, and something else. And she brings it to her 3 friends, Laurel, Amber, and Denise.
Okay.
And is like, firstly, I'm not going to beat Wendy, and I'm not going to be valedictorian because I'm being forced to go across the world to Asia for 3 months with my grandmother who I've never met. But also...
And not the easy parts of Asia.
No! But then also... there's this big mystery. And they immediately are like, rubber duck, rubber band. Like, we're going to figure this out. We have a combined GPA of Einstein, and they have advanced placement classes, which I thought was funny.
I legit couldn't tell if that was a joke or not. I was like, is there AAP classes somewhere?
If there are, I did not take them. So, I didn't
Is that the rain?
Yeah, that's rain.
Y'all might hear some rain. That's the roof above us.
Yeah. But her friends are friends from Latin Club, and their whole goal in life is to get boyfriends because they are all nerds and have never been on a date in their life, and to help Vassar be valedictorian and beat their arch nemesis Wendy, who is valedictorian because she's a photographic memory.
I was a little bit afraid for half a second that they would bring like teenage drama into it, like, they're competing arch nemesis, or maybe the four friends are gonna disagree on something, but they end up just being like the closest of friends, and they talk about all the things their age talks about.
Yeah, actually, that is something that I really liked. Is there was, so before they made this plan of Vassar writing a novel to take place of her advanced placement English class. They held a funeral for her academic record.
Yes.
And
God, I almost forgot about that.
And they wore black armbands. And, like, I know as an adult reading it, that sounds so dramatic. But thinking as a 16-year-old girl, I feel that deep in my soul.
Well, and there was no shame. They did not care at all because they did it publicly in front of other people. They were, like, making fun of them. And they were like, no, this is serious.
I think someone was throwing M&Ms at them, and one of them, like, picked it up and ate the M&M.
Yeah, I was like, oh, yeah, that'd be me. Like, thanks for the free candy.
Yeah.
I have no shame. I'll eat that off the ground.
But, like, I just feel like teenage girls are that dramatic. They're, like, you know, they lost... Whatever it is that their thing is, they're like, you know, we lost this game, and now we're going to be in, you know... mourning or be so upset for like a week, and you're like, it's just a game. Like, it was just Monopoly against your mom. Like, you're gonna be okay.
Well, let's not bring Monopoly into this. That's the whole thing.
But yeah, so she is packed off to Asia by herself, and
to meet my favorite character,
Grandma Gerd. Or Hanks.
Grandma.
But before that happens, her perfect mother, Althea, has a breakdown, which I thought was kind of hilarious because I now as a mom kind of empathize with the mom of like, you want the best for your kid, and like, you know this trip is going to be awful because you know what the secret is, and she literally is just like, F it, like, send me, you know, give me sleeping meds. I'm going to bed for the next 2 months. She
literally becomes bedridden for months. I was like, this is dramatic, but I believe it.
I think that's what's so good is like, it's so ridiculous and over the top that it's just like, what is happening?
But it's not so ridiculous that it's unbelievable to read. Like, this novel works all the way through on every level. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So what did you think of the parents and the preparation to go to Asia?
Oh, God. Okay, so Mom, fine. I don't have much to say about her. She's there.
Yeah, she's just having a breakdown in bed.
Yeah, she was really funny. But Dad I like a lot. Like I said, I like him mostly for his cartoonishness and ridiculousness.
I like that when he was packing the car with her 10 bags, he had to go put on a back brace.
And I was gonna say, as far as the preparedness goes, I knew the second she was like, she's acting like some billionaire with all these plans on some fantastic voyage. I'm like, I get it. You're going to like third world parts of, but it's just like, first of all, what is it gonna cost to get on the plane? Those 10 bags.
Oh yeah. I think her dad is actually a professor who's writing books. Like, he's not well off.
Yeah, I don't know, but I was waiting. I was like, okay, she brought 10 bags. These people are planners. This is a book, therefore something must go wrong. They're going to lose them in transit or something's going to happen. No, she brings them all with her up to a certain point, but she succeeds in bringing everything, and it's freaking hilarious.
And so she gets over to Asia and immediately is like sweating and dying. And she proceeds to push by herself all 10 of these bags out. I can't even push like 3.
I mean, there was a whole hectic scene of her like waiting for the last bag on the
bag
carousel and just freaking out like, oh my God, the 10th bag. If that's not there, I have nothing. It's like, girl, you got 9 of the bags. Okay, I think you have everything you need.
And she is that like ugly American. She's got the money belt that she has to hide a certain way that's flesh colored.
It's like locked onto her so you can't steal it. Which, fair enough, but yeah, she went hard. She went hard on tourism.
She's got the special shoes that are good for walking. She's got a mask, and this is pre-COVID, way pre-COVID.
I was laughing at that because she's like, I'm going to put this mask on, and everyone on the plane is going to think I'm stupid and ridiculous. And I'm like,
Yeah.
This is very different to read right now because this is all you see.
Yeah, that part did not age. But she's got her, like, what does she wear? She wears, like, a mask, and then, like, she has her neck pillow, and then hand sanitizer, like, all the things that, like, now is normal, but in 2007 was not normal.
Yeah, like, it's funny thinking, like, people would, like, make fun of her for being, like, a clean freak, and now it's like, no, that's, everyone has everything.
Yeah. And so she gets over there, and some guy starts talking to her, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm being accosted by a crazy Asian cowboy with chops, what are they, like big sideburn things.
Yep.
On the side of his head.
What a character choice.
And I just want my grandma. And my grandma's not here. And she's never met Grandma Gerd until this point.
And I think it's kind of a poor start on Hanks,
yeah.
like, not Hanks apostrophe S. His name is Hanks, like as if it sounds plural.
Yeah.
Hanks. I feel like that was the wrong way to start. Like, this girl has never been here, never really traveled before. You're talking to her like some weird stranger. How about be like, I'm here to pick you up, or I know your grandma, or hey, I'm not a complete wacko stranger in a third world country. Like, he could not have made this harder and more scary for her.
Yeah, I just kind of wondered if, like, maybe he thought Gerd had called her and been like, hey, this is who's picking you up.
I fully believe there was a ton of miscommunication.
Yeah. Because
But also, he's
a weirdo.
He's a weirdo.
But, like, in the
But
best
a good
way.
weirdo. Yeah, he's not scary.
So he basically, like I said, is he Thai? I don't actually know.
I think they said it, but honestly, we visit a few different places. Yeah. I forget.
So he is Asian, and he speaks multiple languages, but he spends every summer with his uncle in Wyoming, I believe, and his life goal is to be a cowboy, but his dad wants him to be an engineer, as all good Asian parents in a book want you to be. Engineer, doctor, lawyer. That's the choices for Hanks. And he's like, nope, I'm going to be a cowboy, and I'm going to speak with an accent, and I'm going to use words like keister.
I mean, yeah, at this point in the book, his family has already shunned him. Like, he's not a part of the situation anymore.
Yeah, well, so his dad is there during pickup, and is just like, Junior, you can't even get her into the van? Like, what the heck are you doing? So he's definitely on the outs. They're still talking, but Hanks is a pariah. And so she finally gets in the van, and her bags need a whole separate vehicle.
Yep, and she freaks out because they're going to travel separately from the bags. So we hope they make it still. We're still waiting for those bags to make it all the way to Final Destination.
Yep, and so they go, and she arrives at all the little hostel places they stayed had silly names. There was one Comfy House or something. I don't even know. But she arrives at the first one with Hanks, and Grandma Gerd is nowhere to be found.
Nope.
So, of course, the first thing Vassar does is call her parents and say, I'm here, but Grandma's not here. And they're, freaking out.
Well, and a lot of times she'll call Dad, and Dad's like, we just won't tell your mother.
Yeah. And she talks to her mom. She's like, this is so relaxing. And she's like, on death's doorstep.
Yep. Yep.
So, and then, we meet Grandma Gerd. She's your favorite?
She's my favorite. She's over the top. She's everything that I want to be. 99%. There's 1% of her that wants me to... I want to punch her in the face.
Is it the wine drinking?
No,
I'm kidding.
It's it's a few things.
Okay.
It's the tricks, first of all, letting her on a plane to a new, they were jumping countries, and she's like, oh, I forgot to get on the plane with you, or, oh, your 10 bags, I sent 9 of them back, or I'm just like, some of these things, you took it too far, but I'm here for your, upbeat positivity, travel, don't plan, just go with the flow, and we'll see where we end up. Kidnapped, perhaps?
Yeah, so... It's funny because Grandma Gerd comes off as never planning and not really caring, but that old lady has a lot of plans happening.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, she plans to get Vassar on a plane and leave her. She plans to hide all of Vassar's bags. She drugs her.
Like I said, 99%. There's 1% that I'm like, you took it too far. She's a planner, but in the way that she's not planning. Like,
yeah.
The only reason she's planning in this book is to get Vassar to realize that planning isn't important.
Yeah, to counteract
in her
Vassar.
daily life, she ain't doing any of this stuff.
No. But so Grandma Gerd is an artist, and she's been an artist since her husband died and she became a widow. And she is in Asia making a art installation for this big corporation.
A really big one.
Yeah, using found things, like trash and stuff, to create the art. And people love her. People love her art. And Vassar thinks her art's like a joke, basically. So, like, one year for her birthday, she sent her a collage, and Vassar immediately threw it out and sent some crappy note of like, wow, thanks, I really see something in it. And it's kind of like when you're talking to like a child and you're like, yeah, that cloud definitely looks like a unicorn.
And she was like, also, my birthday, I mean, thanks for remembering, but it was 3 months ago or something.
Yeah. So she's kind of the...
Which I kind of like that art style, though. I love the found art thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know what her problem is.
I think Vassar is just like Monet, Picasso, Da Vinci. That's art.
Because she thinks it's... She's like, it's literal trash.
Yeah.
You didn't use like a paintbrush or something.
Yeah. She doesn't understand until she sees Gerd in action. And she's like, oh no, these people actually like love what she's doing. And she's like really well known. And so the money from this art installation, I think she says, is like enough for her to live for like a half a year or something.
No, yeah. They literally said, once I finish this, I'm good for the next full year.
Yeah. I
don't have to work until next year. And I was like, girl, you're picking up trash. Like, how do I get into this business? You make one art installation of trash, which I know there's a lot more involved in that, but I'm like, that's easier than my job. Let me figure that out. I will do that.
Yeah.
I'm creative.
So Vassar thinks that Gerd, short for Gertrude. Let me just say that because it sounds kind of weird. But she thinks Grandma Gerd is just this freakazoid hippie chick who has no plans. Like, Vassar's like, tell me the itinerary. And she's like, live in the moment. And Vassar's like, what are we having for dinner? Like, and it's funny because Grandma Gerd at one point is like, they might not even wash that glass you're drinking out of right now, but we just had to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And Vassar's like, I'm never drinking again.
So there is probably no segue in which to insert this comment of mine, so I'll just say it now.
Yeah.
One thing that I like about the way this author wrote is she brought up very small but important details. And what I noticed in particular was the constant descriptions of the main character, Vassar, having to use a toilet.
There's a lot of toilet.
In most books, you don't know when the main character is going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
In this book, the bathroom becomes a character.
Yeah.
Because every single time there's somewhere new, there's a new and unique experience in which she has to learn how to use the bathroom. Squatty potty. Something way too tall for her just to crawl up on. And I'm just like, it really puts into perspective. A bottle. I'm just like, wow. Like, they turned the bathroom into a legit story.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I appreciate my bathroom at home because this all sounds like a gigantic mess to deal with.
I've never used a squat toilet, but like, because of how much I've read about it in this book, I feel like I probably could.
I know that I could, and that's not so much the problem. There was other parts where she's like, has to be careful not to touch things. Mm-hmm. Or there's one where they're in a restaurant, and I don't know if I was picturing it wrong, but I just pictured a wooden shack attached to a wall, and she's literally trying to climb up on this freaking pedestal to reach a toilet.
Oh, it was in a boat.
In a boat, okay. And it was too tall.
And she's 5'10".
And she's 5'10". And then she gets stuck somewhere somehow, and then they have to open the door, and everyone sees her, and I'm like, oh my god, every bathroom thing, like, is an experience for her, and I feel this. This is insanity.
And Hanks is there at every single experience.
And Hanks takes it too far because he takes way too many pictures of her in vulnerable positions.
Yes, he does.
To the point where she thinks he's going to take pictures of her with her pants down, and then Grandma keeps using those pictures for the found art project.
Right, or that's what Vassar thinks.
Yeah.
So yeah, Hanks is along for the journey as Grandma Gerd's assistant slash Vassar's babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
He's 18, and he is just like, wherever they're going, he's an eye. So, like, if Grandma Gerd has decided she's going to go off to try and find something, Hanks is with Vassar. And the first time we realize that Hanks is babysitting is when Gerd says, go experience Malaysia. And so she gets in a tuk-tuk.
Yeah, I think so. One of those, like, what, like they
people,
carry the,
yeah,
carry you. Yeah, 2 wheels.
And she stops at the, what is he called? The Ear Nibbler's house.
Oh, God, that was such a weird scene. That's, because that was early on, and that's when I knew I was in for something. I was like, this book takes us to some odd places.
So basically the Ear Nibbler is like, he doesn't have a name, so...
He's just the resident really old guy.
Yeah, so tourists stop by and he'll give them, like, a little meal and show them a traditional house, and he speaks broken English, and he basically... And there's another backpacker with Vassar when she walks up, and the guy is like, oh, when he leaves, the backpacker leaves, like, I'll give you a present. And that present was a grilled cheese, and as Vassar goes to eat the grilled cheese, this, like, 70, 80-year-old man starts chewing on her ear. He doesn't have teeth. And she freaks out, as one does.
Well, the whole scene is weird because it's broken English, so it's creepy, and he's like, I have surprise. Yeah. And then, like, oh, put on these clothes. You look really good in them. And
let me take pictures.
Let me take pictures. Yeah. I'm like, are we getting into, like, a weird, like, illegal porn situation? Like, why is he trying to change this girl's clothes? This is getting real weird. This book does not seem like the age group I thought it was for.
And so she basically runs out, and outside waiting for her is Hanks. Mm-hmm. Or, like, he picks her up.
He's always secretly waiting.
Yeah, because I think, the direction from Gerd was kind of like, let her do her thing, but, like, keep an eye on her. Don't like, don't let her know you're babysitting her, but, like, babysit her.
Yeah.
And so he just thinks it's funny. Like, she runs out of there.
He's in for the ride. He's having a great time.
And everyone knows that the Ear Nibbler is just, like, a senile old man that does that. And she's like, go to the cops. Like, this is crazy. And they're like, nah.
Yeah, I'm like, it doesn't make it any better. That was freaking weird.
Yeah, no, definitely weird. Definitely don't recommend visiting that hut if it exists somewhere. But that's kind of the first note where we're like, oh, like, Hanks is not just some guy.
Mm-hmm.
And she is thoroughly annoyed by everything he does forever until like,
which is how the greatest relationships always start in these books.
Yeah.
Everything that they do annoys you until it doesn't.
It's like us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that they very quickly go from Malaysia to Cambodia because they're going to hit Malaysia on the back end. So they stay only a couple days there, and that is when Gerd and Vassar are in the airport. Gerd gets distracted by someone's shirt and literally buys the shirt off this passerby's back. Vassar gets on. Gerd does not. And she has no money. She doesn't know what's happening. No itinerary. She doesn't know where they're staying. All that is in Gerd's brain. And Vassar is losing her mind on the plane.
But Grandma knowingly does it because she walks up to the airport window and waves at her like, oh, bye, with a smile, like, gotcha.
Yeah. Now
you really got to go explore on your own.
Well, and little does Vassar know, Hanks is in the back of the plane.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to lie. Even if it was an actual accident and the person who was trying to get on the plane missed it because they were like, I don't know.
Any reason.
They were in the bathroom, like, legitimately, I would freak the fuck out. Like, I wouldn't even be able to, I don't know. I would be losing my mind. And we have phones now. Like, they didn't have it. This was not a cell phone situation.
Oh, yeah. They keep having to go to, like, internet cafes and stuff to, like, catch up.
Yeah. So I would be freaking out. I'd be like, I don't know, turn the plane around. So I can't imagine being 16 and first time out of the country and now thinking you've been abandoned.
And out. Like, you're not going anywhere safe.
Yeah.
It's a little scary.
Well, and she speaks Latin.
Mm-hmm.
She does not speak any useful language.
I was going to say Latin, the most important language you could know on Earth, apparently.
So in Cambodia, the first thing, once she finds out Hank's on the plane with her, her and Hanks end up having to share a room. And that's like a whole experience because Vassar's never been around a boy like this.
And I think I'm wrong. Was it one bed or two?
It was 2 beds.
It was just the fact they had to share a room, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, she's just never been that physically close to him.
I mean, her experience in life so far has been extremely closed.
Yeah.
Like, everything is going to be new to her. Everything.
Mm-hmm. And so he's like making fun of her and trying to get her to open up a little bit. And I think it's good. I think it's, she's a prude. She's never done anything in her life. And she starts to ask, like, do you have a girlfriend? And then she's like, galloping horse. And he's like, no. And I also don't have a girlfriend. Do you have a boyfriend? And she's immediately like, yes, John Pepper. Or Prepper. Pepper. And that dude does not know she exists.
Well, and he calls her out immediately because there was something she said beforehand where he was like, but I thought you guys had never, like, done anything. Yeah.
Oh, no, because Grandma Gerd had told him that she never had a boyfriend or anything.
Yeah, because she said it over the phone probably. Yeah.
And she's writing this novel the whole way, and she leaves her notebook out where she wrote that Sarah, which is her fake name for her, is strangely attracted to the Asian cowboy, which is Hanks, but in the book that she's writing is called Wayne. And he decides to pick it up and read it. Mm-hmm. That'd be so embarrassing. Like, I wouldn't even want... I don't know. Like, I don't... Even, like, lists sometimes, like, I wouldn't want someone else to be reading. Because my list might say, like, brush your hair. Like, don't forget to do the most basic thing.
Well, it's not...
He doesn't know what it is.
He doesn't know what it is, but, like, someone who's part of the book's experience is going to realize that they're a character in that book.
Yeah.
As opposed to somebody, like, the teacher who's going to read it and have no idea.
Well, her friends are great because the whole time they're commenting on it, thinking it's all fiction, when she's really writing what's happening with separate names.
Yeah, I was going to say a note further down the line. One of my favorite aspects of this book is that she's writing this book, and every single time she sends the next chapter to her friends, they're like, great characters. How funny if this is actually true.
Yeah.
Where do you come up with these ideas? I'm like, oh my God, this is so great.
Or they're commenting on it. So this is later in the book, but they do get kidnapped. And they're literally like, kidnapping, really? That's been done. Like, do something else. And she's like, no, like, this is what's happening.
They think she's like this most fantastic writer, like storyteller, like with all these unique ideas. And she's like, towards the end of the book, she's like monologuing, whatever. And she's like, I cannot wait to tell them that like, this was just all true. Mm-hmm. They're never going to believe me.
Also, though, she's writing about herself as Sarah. And her friends are like, wow, Sarah's really boring. Make Sarah do something. And she's like pissed. She's like, what do you mean make Sarah do something? Like, I am Sarah. So I appreciate that too. Because, like, I don't know. There are things that I might want to do, but I wouldn't just do them alone necessarily. Mm-hmm. Especially at 16. Now, maybe I definitely would be more likely. But yeah, at 16, I'd be like, no, I'm not going out on that limb by myself. Mm-hmm. And she's forced to, so...
And you at 16 with a lot less technology where
it
is not an easy task to get a hold of family or police or anything else.
No.
Well, unless the police get a hold of you, in which they do.
So in Cambodia, a lot actually happens. That's our first introduction to the squat toilet. But we also find out that Grandma Gerd gave Vassar her middle name, and Vassar's like, you're crazy. You don't even know. I'm your granddaughter, your only granddaughter. I don't have a middle name. And that's when Grandma Gerd realizes that her son and daughter-in-law have kind of reneged on some of the deal that they made. And so Vassar's middle name, which she's called for most of the rest of the book, is Fraggy Panty? Is that how you would say it?
I'd have to see it again. See it again. I've never seen it written. I'm trying to remember how she said it. Frangipani.
So she calls her Frangie.
Okay. Yep, Frangie.
And yeah, I've only ever read it. I've never heard it said.
Yeah.
So they make an agreement, her and Vassar. And she basically says, because Vassar's like, I know you're blackmailing them. What's the big secret? And she's like, I can't tell you. But if you figure it out with that big 5.3 GPA,
yeah.
you know.
Well, 5.3 is a new 4 point whatever.
Yep. And so she agrees to give her clues, Gerd does. She agrees to answer yes or no questions. And she will only do this if she lets her call her Frangie. So she starts calling her Frangie. And so she gives her like a letter every day. But then they go to Angkor Wat. And they Grandma Gerd commits a crime.
She does. Legit.
So they're walking around and there's all these beautiful works of art. Like if you Google it, if you don't know what it is, I know what it is.
I had to Google it. It's like a little statue thing, but they kept saying it. And I was like, I don't know this word, but it's like just like a little female like statue, like
if you picture like
idol sort of thing.
Yeah, like a goddess type looking thing. But they're like Cambodian dancers, I think. But they find one on the ground, and it's hundreds of years old, and Grandma Gerd steals it. And Vassar is about to blow a blood vessel over the fact that she stole this historical artifact. And so Vassar decides she's going to bring it back.
And the second she said that, I said, you're done. It's over. There's no way.
So if you were Grandma Gerd and you found this piece, it's not even a whole one, but this piece of a statue in the dirt, would you keep it?
I would probably...
It's being walked on every day.
Yeah, I would probably take it because it's a very important thing that she wants for her art piece, and she thinks, because she says she wants to represent that culture into the piece of art. And for me, I'd be like, well, yeah, regardless of importance, it's sitting there, it's broken, it's not like it's some perfect museum or anything.
Yeah.
I would just probably take it. I don't see why you wouldn't.
I would too.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally, it's a piece of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Vassar decides that is stealing. She puts it in her backpack. She goes to bring it back. And as she's trying to return it to the place of origin, some cops, security, I guess.
Yeah, some sort of law enforcement. I don't remember.
I think they're like the Angkor Wat security. And they immediately are going to like lock her up. And she's like, I'm a minor. I'm 16. You can't do this. I need a trial. And no one's helping her.
Well, she's screaming out loud to everyone, like, I need help. They think I'm lying. And everyone's like, oh, it's that backpack girl. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like the ugly American,
Yeah.
And so she's sitting there. She's all stressed out. She thinks she's going to go to prison.
Yeah, she thinks her life is over.
Yeah. And she's sitting there, and I think he honks or something. Hanks saves her with like a motorbike.
Hanks hires someone for an escape.
Yeah. Would you run away?
I would.
I don't think I would.
I could easily. The situation was very easy. And I'm not saying it wasn't serious, but for a 16-year-old in a third world country, it's probably scary. To me, I'm like, yeah, it sounds like you got taken away by mall cops.
Yeah, yeah.
What are they gonna do? Really tase you, shoot you? Because they're neither one of the officers or whatever.
One was asleep.
Yeah, they were just chilling, like doing something. Their back was to her. She was too afraid to move. They weren't afraid of anything happening.
Well, and Grandma Gerd was like, if you gave him $20, he probably would have just let you.
Yeah,
go.
they're like, you can literally pay these people off. Like, this is not a big deal.
Yeah.
They're kind of corrupt. They'll do whatever works for them. He's like, yeah, just hop over that ledge or that window or whatever. Get on here and we go. What are they gonna do?
But then Hanks tries to stress her out and is like, put on my hat and put on my thing and like cover up. And then like for the rest of their time, like leaving, they like leave right away. And she like hides her hair and like all of these things. And I'm like, that's a little much though, right?
But then it comes back to bite her because people will recognize her later as the person that stole.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, that's the girl she stole that statue. and they recognize her. And she's like, oh my God, now I have a reputation in a third world country.
As a thief.
As a thief.
But also, Grandma Gerd is mad at her and is not talking to her.
Yeah.
So they're like talking through Hanks. They're like, tell her I'm going to get dinner. And so there's that back and forth, which is interesting because when we do find out the big secret, I think it's all the things that Grandma Gerd has done feel even more potent. Like they feel more like she's really trying to give Vassar experience. And it's not just your wacky relative. It's coming from a place of real, like, genuine love, I think.
Yeah, I mean the whole book and the whole trip is her trying to teach her one big lesson about life and adventure. It's all the care is there.
And so they, like you said, she has another toilet experience on their way to Laos. And that's on the boat, and she has to, like, Hanks talks her through peeing so many times that I just don't understand. Like, don't we do that 10 times a day?
Yeah, but I mean, it's the positions she's put in where I'm like, God, the bathroom is a story in itself because there is just no easy or normal way for her to go to the bathroom in this book.
Yeah.
Every place she goes is weird.
Well, and when we first meet her, she fully has like she like brags about it. She has this.
Yeah, the cleaning kit.
Yeah, this thing that like it's basically a toilet cover, like you would see in like a mall or public restroom or something in America. But it like unfurls itself, and then when it goes back into its pack, it self-sanitizes. Yeah. And she's like...
I didn't quite get how that works, but I was like, okay, I'll go with it for now.
I think they made it up. I don't know. But like, you know, she's like gonna blow up this thing every time she goes to the bathroom. She's like carrying it around, and she's like, you know, terrified of germs. She's gonna be... And again, now during post-COVID, we can understand a little more. But yeah... first of all, a 16-year-old walking around with this. And then also just like, you know, the facilities in these third world countries are not the same as an American public space.
Which is why the author makes such a big deal out of it. Yeah. And the whole food and drink situation also becomes a story.
Yeah, so Vassar immediately gets... I've heard it called Delhi Belly, but that's India. But she gets, like, you know, stomach issues because she's eating these foods and drinking local water that she's never had before. Oh, and she has a guidebook. We haven't talked about the guidebook at all.
Nope, but she definitely has one. Not just about the places, but, like, how to survive and do, like, normal things.
Yeah, so it's, like, you know, one of the things is never drink tap water. So she's always trying to drink a bottled something.
Or brush your teeth with bottled water. Yeah. Like, you can never use it for anything, even if you're not swallowing.
And one of their things is to take, is it Tums or something, before you eat, because it'll, or like Pepto-Bismol or something like that. I don't know what they
I have to do that with Chinese food.
I mean, but yeah, like.
So I get it.
So you're like coating your stomach before you're eating this thing. And... yeah, so she's trying all the tips and tricks, and she sees someone out who's also American who's using sanitization spray.
Like food spray.
Food spray to, like, clean it, like, on pizza. And, or whatever the person was eating. And she's like, I want that. And she's over there trying to, like, buy it off this woman for, like, an arm and a leg. And the woman's like, no, like, this is how I'm getting through my Asian trip. And that bites Vassar later because she does find some, and it's fifth of the price.
It's too cheap because she's like, yes, got it for a steal. It's from a street vendor.
She buys 6 bottles.
Yep. And so the second that happened, you're like, okay, well, whatever's in this bottle is not what's supposed to be in this bottle.
Yeah, she fully like went up to the guy in the trench coat to buy a watch. Yeah. Like, no, this is not actually, you know, what's those watches? A Rolex. This is not a Rolex.
Oh, the brand of watch.
Yeah. Where they're like, hey, I got a Rolex for you for $5. And you're like, no, you've got a Folex. Like, come on. So she bought Folex sanitization spray, basically.
Well, and not even, like, fake. It's not like, oh, it was just water. It was really, really bad.
It was legit chemicals.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know. Kill. It was like drinking pesticides.
Yeah, and she sprays them. She sprays all the food and drink down, and like just not just hers, but Grandma's too. So
and she gives a piece. So she sprays it on pizza, and she gives a piece of the pizza to
a homeless man.
A homeless man who doesn't have legs outside.
And he's so appreciative, but she didn't tell anyone that it was sanitized. So Grandma eats it, homeless man eats it, and then she explains it, and they were like, first of all, Grandma's like, well, those bottles are just chemicals. Like, you shouldn't put that in your body, thinking it was the real deal. And then it was not the real deal. And she's like, oh, no, these are, like, really chemicals.
Well, because within a few minutes, they are all, like, doubled over, like, sick.
They're done.
And so they all end up in the hospital.
And they bring the homeless guy. They're like, you're coming with us. Let's go.
Hanks gets them all into a cab. And they spend, like, a week in the hospital. Or, like, down.
Well, and it wasn't just some quick fix. Like, they had to get, like, charcoal and bind all the chemicals together. They had their stomachs pumped.
Yep.
It was... There's a few situations in which it was like, oh, no, you almost died this month.
Because she's really, like... They almost died. All of these things happen because she's like, this is the way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I must have it germ-free. I must right the wrong. I am superior... I have superior morals. I have superior knowledge. I am superior. And she's not. She's 16. Like, calm yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so Grandma Gerd is in her 60s or near 60. They don't actually say, I don't think. But she's like really down. She's like, maybe you shouldn't even be here. Like,
yeah.
Because, you know, we can bounce back when we're in our 20s or at 16 like Vassar. But like, when you're in your 60s and you've just had your stomach pumped and all of this nonsense, and Grandma Gerd's got to pay for it.
Yep.
And pay for the homeless man.
Mm-hmm.
Whew. Yeah, that's got to be a lot.
Yeah, there's a certain part of... I think this is where the book starts going downhill. Not in a bad way, but downhill of just like, okay, things are getting progressively worse. I don't know how this is going to end, but this is not what I was expecting.
Yeah. So... Once they are fixed up and okay, they are going to a remote spot in Laos that you can only get to from a very specific hike to find an iridescent beetle.
Mm-hmm.
And they arrive, they touch down by helicopter, and they're supposed to go with this tour guide who's very knowledgeable. And there's a 12-year-old boy there instead, named Boomy.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's how I say his name. Is that how they said it?
I'd have to see it again. I don't know.
So I think of it, I kind of picture him...
Oh, I think they said Bon May or Bon Me.
Okay, so I say Boomy, and I think of the little kid from last Avatar. The little, like, who was his friend, and they were like... So, never mind. It doesn't matter.
I know Avatar, but not well enough to give you names.
Yeah, no one's going to know what I'm talking about, but I know. I'll show you later. So basically, Boomy is this little chain-smoking 12-year-old. He might be older than 12, but he looks 12. And he says that the original guide broke both his legs. And so Boomy, who's been on the hike once, is going to get them to where they need to go. Grandma Gerd says, yay, wonderful. Would you follow a chain-smoking 12-year-old?
No, but...
Same.
I would if he knew it well enough, but the fact that he gave away he only knew it once is a little concerning. Because I don't put things past kids. Kids are smart.
Oh, yeah,
he might know it, but knowing he only did this very specific and dangerous hike once, that's questionable. And I think Grandma was putting on a face during this act.
Yeah.
Because she was clearly concerned at first, but she didn't want to make everyone else concerned, especially Vassar. So she just continued her uppity, nice, just, well, this is part of adventure and exploring and not planning. Like, this is how it happens. But she secretly was concerned. No question.
So I wouldn't follow him, but I loved him.
Oh, yeah, he's great.
So he was like, they're walking and And Vassar is basically like, do you know where we're going? Do you know what we're doing? Have you seen the beetle? Like,
he's also a yes man.
Well, so he's telling them, yes, yes. Oh, look, beautiful butterfly. Nature put on show.
Yep.
Like, he's like, look over here. Stop asking me questions.
Mm-hmm.
And they do get to the first village. And they stay. They have a little homestay with Mr. Vang. Vang? I assume.
Again, names.
V-A-N-G.
Over my head on these.
And his daughters, Peace and Grace. And they're very nice. They, have every backpacker sign it. So they've been doing this for years. Very legitimate. They have a wonderful meal. The kid, Boomai, whatever. He makes a great dinner for all of them. They joke about how he would be a great wife someday, like the daughters do. And everything's going good. They have a nice little... She wakes up in the middle of the night having to pee.
Yep. Again, back to the bathroom situation.
And she can't figure out how to open the door because it has a latch on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so Hanks wakes up and basically helps her by holding like a sarong around her and giving her a bottle and like being like, Vassar, just like think about Latin or something. She like conjugates Latin in her head.
Yeah.
And pees in a bottle. And then they kiss.
But I think this is the bathroom scene in which it clicks with her and she's like, I can do this now. Like, It used to be so hard and now she's like, I can do this all day long. And like, she's finally like adapted to like this other way of living.
Yeah. But yeah, so she also, I didn't mention, when they first get off the helicopter, I've never been on a helicopter, but I understand enough that like the thing spins around, the propeller and debris and stuff also spins around. So Vassar...
Good for you.
There's a point. But Vassar wears contacts. She takes out her contact to clean it and like sticks it in her mouth. That sounds gross.
Yeah, she's trying to clean it, but I'm pretty sure whatever's going on in my mouth is not going to clean a contact lens.
No. But Grandma Gerd comes up behind her and smacks her on the back like, let's go, Frangie. And she swallows her contact, so she's half blind this entire time.
And she does have glasses, but she forgot them in the other bag.
Well, because she only had one bag. Yeah.
But she could have, and she herself forgot them back home. Yeah. Well, back where she was staying. Yeah. Which is even worse.
So.
And I'm sorry, but at that point, I'm taking the other contact out. I feel
Well, she just can't see.
I know, but God, that would drive me crazy.
And so she's blind the whole time, or partially blind. And so she's,
And it's not like she can change it out or clean it. No, like, she has to wear this for the next however many days.
And she doesn't know how long.
That's going to get irritated.
Oh, yeah. So they go on this big hike and, they stop at one village and they have a great sleep and then they move on to the next village and the 12-year-old tour guide gets them lost.
They don't know that yet. He's pretending they're fine.
Which is great on him. Like, he's doing his best.
But the village he chose, maybe not the greatest option.
So the only place that he is able to get them to sleep, because, like, it's night now. There's, like, no other option.
They have to secure a spot, yeah.
Yeah. And she immediately realizes, like, oh, these people are not the same. So they end up sleeping in an opium den. Which, again, her friends are like, come on, that's so 1800s. Like, there's no opium dens anymore. And she's like, no, like, I'm in one right now.
Mm-hmm. And the people aren't unfriendly. It's just that they have very specific tastes in the way that you should do certain things.
Right. Well, and so when Boomy is going to, like, try and figure out where they can stay, Grandma Gerd starts drawing pictures of all the little kids, and she's having a wonderful time. And Vassar notices these two kids who are, like, separate. One is, like, I think she calls it, like, scraped up face boy, and Stick Girl.
Mm-hmm. Stick Girl is the main one.
Yeah, Stick Girl becomes an integral part of this section of the book, which is really interesting because you just see her as, like, this weirdo little girl who's counting her sticks over and over.
She's mute, basically. I mean, she doesn't speak English, but so, like, for all intents, like, she doesn't have a line in this book.
No, she doesn't say anything. She's kind of like, and this is probably a bad comparison, but she's like not demonic. She's like a bad version of like a little Disney, like sidekick.
Okay. Okay.
Like that doesn't talk, but like says a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. She's not bad.
No, she's not.
But she's also her parents.
She's an integral part of the escape.
All of the adults in her life are opium users. So she's probably a little screwed up in her brain because she's sleeping with surrounded by opium.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Makes sense.
I'm not 100% sure how opium works, but I'm sure it's affecting her.
I imagine.
And so Vassar sleeps in the wrong direction.
Yeah, near the fireplace, but like changed direction or slept wrong, and that angers whatever spirits they believe in.
Yep. And they've decided that if they don't do a ritual, then the baby that the place they're staying in, the woman is carrying a baby, the baby might be cursed. And
look, I'm sorry, but I'm a tornado sleeper. I will wake up some way different than how I went to bed. Yeah. It's not possible to be perfectly still in the same position. These people are out of their minds.
Again, I feel for Boomy because he told her 3 times. He's like, no, ma'am, turn back around. Like, use nice pillow. Like, your backpack is a nice pillow. Like, stay there. If he had said, hey, chickie, you're going to ruin us and they're going to be pissed at us if you don't sleep with your head over here, she would have just done it.
Yeah.
But
he's also not like an aggressive person. Like he's very...
No, and he might not have the words for it, to be honest. So she immediately gets him in trouble in this new village, and they hold her hostage.
Yeah, the grandma and Hanks, etc., have to leave the way they came.
So Hanks isn't... We didn't say that, but Hanks isn't actually there. So
Oh, well, yeah, he comes in a little later. That's right.
Yeah, so at Mr. Vang's, he goes to put on his boot when they leave, and a centipede bites his foot, and he can't walk.
Mm-hmm.
So he's stuck there until basically they were going to, like, go, see the beetle, come back, pick up Hanks on the way back, was the plan. But that did not happen. As every plan in this book does not happen.
Nope, our 12-year-old guide has to take Grandma back down the mountainside to grab like an excessive amount of money to pay them off.
Yeah.
For the material they're going to need for this ritual.
Yes. And right before she falls asleep and is woken up in trouble, Vassar puts together all her letters and figures out they spell the word adopted.
Mm-hmm.
And her father was adopted. So Grandma Gerd adopted Leonardo, Vassar's dad, with her husband, when they were young people. And Grandma Gerd always assumed she was infertile, and that's why they adopted. Comes to find out, Vassar was also adopted. Mm-hmm. So what did you think? Were you able to figure out the word before Vassar figured it out?
No, I got it when she got it purely because if I had the book in front of me, I'd probably keep track of the letters, but I couldn't physically see it, so I wasn't even unscrambling it when they were saying it. I was like, I don't remember what letters they were. Yeah.
So I already knew, obviously, because I've read it so many times, but I was thinking about it when I was physically reading it, and I was like, I don't think I would put together, like, because she'll like Gerd gives her a lifesaver, and that's like the O.
Mm-hmm.
And like you just don't see it very often, and when you do see it, it's not in any order.
Well, and it's intentionally done that the letters we get are hard for us to figure out. Hopefully,
yeah,
to unscramble. So they want you to take your time figuring it out.
Yeah, so
as the book goes.
She like gets a D and a D, and you're like, well, that's nothing.
Yeah,
And so, so she finds out she's adopted, and right before Grandma Gerd leaves, Grandma Gerd admits that she is actually Mama Gerd.
Mm-hmm. It was a genuine surprise. It was also a little bit weird. Maybe not in a bad way, but I was like, oh, you had no idea that you've been just hanging with your mom for 2 months, and she just kept that a secret. But I was like, okay, this is blackmail that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Now I understand why parents didn't do anything wrong. That now makes so much more sense.
Yeah. So she basically Grandma Gerd, like I said, thought she was infertile. It turns out it was actually her husband who was. And so she was a widow, and she decided to travel to Asia for the first time. And she had a fling. She had a drunken one-night stand, too many gin and tonics, with a Thai man who she never saw again, and created Vassar.
Now I have a question for you.
Yeah.
And it's opinionated. So, obviously, Vassar's parents know that she is adopted and Grandma's the real mom.
Yeah.
Vassar's parents are hardcore. They can't imagine sending her off to third world countries, getting into trouble, possibility of major sicknesses, death, etc. Would you let your daughter go because of the blackmail, or would you just tell her she's adopted at 16 years old?
I would just tell her she was adopted. Well, I mean, I think I'm much more chill than Vassar's parents. And if I had an adopted child, they would know they were adopted.
Yeah. But after I realized the secret, I was like, based on how intense they were, I might just have to go with, hey, you're adopted.
So the agreement that they made was that Vassar would be told after she completed her PhD. Mm-hmm. And Grandma Gerd decided that was
a horrible decision.
Yeah, like what? Now she has to get a PhD.
She's going to be like 30.
Yeah! But Grandma Gerd realizes that she needs to know sooner when she writes that thank you. And she's like, just not a human. She's this little automaton who's like, I must get PhD. Like, that's all. I must beat Wendy. I must marry a 6'5" surgeon or judge.
I love, because that was in the beginning of the book, and it was so specific. I was like, good luck with that.
Yeah. There are not many 6'5" blonde surgeons or judges. Sorry. And I get Vassar's 5'10", so she wants a tall guy, but like, yeah. And so literally Grandma Gerd's like, yes, I'm your mom. I love you so much. Actually, she doesn't say I love you, but she's like, I'm going to go get the money so that you don't get murdered by this tribe.
Yep.
And she just leaves her. One eye blind. No, they give her like whatever, bottled water and whatever. And she's just stuck there with Stick Girl as her guard.
She may or may not get a single meal each day. Like,
yeah.
It's a serious situation.
Yeah, it's like actually scary. It's like the kind of thing you hear about on like Discovery Channel.
Yeah, they went all the way in on it. I was like, yeah, this book has a comical tone, and then it just took a complete 180. Yeah,
so after about a week or 4 or 5 days.
I think it was about a week.
Vassar's like, well, this does not seem to be getting better. I need to get out of here. And so she kind of has a truce with Stick Girl. She starts to escape and wakes Stick Girl up, who's, like I said, her guard.
I think Stick Girl wants to escape, and this is some way to like help her. Like, this is me spiritually escaping because I wish I was in your position.
So Stick Girl had stolen Vassar's retainer and was wearing it around her neck. And so, on like a string. And so Stick Girl, when she can comprehend that Vassar's escaping, she returns the retainer, and Vassar gives her her gold necklace, her little, that has a Latin phrase on it. And then, like, Stick Girl can understand that that is something of value and gives her one of her sticks, which I just thought was freaking adorable. Mm-hmm. And it's a very child thing. Like, if you've ever been around a small, 5 or under, they give you a half-dead flower, and you better hold on to that until you leave their sight. Because they're going to be like, you have it?
Yep.
My flower? That's yours now. And she literally just makes a break for it. One eye down, in the dark, in the jungle, where there are leeches and things that can kill you, and she runs. Would you run from the opium den?
I would take my chances. And because the scenario she has set up is pretty good. She has a backdoor way out.
Yeah.
Everyone's asleep and drugged up. And you kind of have help with the girl. Yeah. Everything, all signs point to, yes, this is going to work. And it does, which if it didn't, that wouldn't make any sense because they were all knocked out. No one was looking. It was the dead of night. Now, at some point, someone somewhere must have said something because they do eventually try to chase after her. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Stick Girl didn't give it away.
I think they just probably woke up.
Yeah.
Because it was like early morning.
Mm-hmm.
So she is stumbling around. She somehow loses the other contact lens. I don't even know exactly. Like she trips or something. And somehow she falls off a ledge and is like landed on this edge of a cliff face type thing. And is just...
I thought it was in a tree or something. I don't know. She gets caught up in something.
Well, so she's trying to like hold on, but she like trips and like skids down an embankment and then is like ending up like hanging off of something. I think she is holding on to like a root, maybe.
Okay.
And she realizes she's slipping. She doesn't know what else to do. She just starts screaming. And she suddenly gets lassoed.
Who could that be?
Weird. So, yep, Hanks, Grandma Gerd, and Boomy save her, pull her up. And she was like, oh, did you see the Polaroid that I had, like, sticky rice to a tree? And they're like, no, we saw your bra.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, what?
I had a question about this.
I don't know what happened.
Okay.
I've read it 10 times. I think...
I was like, there's a trick that me not knowing how that works. Like, I don't know how it came off or how it was in, like, was it from a backpack? Did it go flying off somewhere?
No, she was wearing it.
I figured she was wearing it, but I rewound it and I was like, say that again? Like, is there something magical going on here?
So, in the audio, did they read the chapter titles?
Yes.
Okay, so that chapter...
Yeah, they're all ridiculous.
It's called The Miracle of the Bra.
Mm-hmm.
And so they never actually explain it. Like, somehow it gets caught on something and looks like a flag. So, like, they see a dirty, gross bra, and they're like, Vassar.
Yeah, I guess I thought I missed something.
No.
But they made it very clear that she also didn't know how that could possibly humanly happen. So I guess there's like just this mysterious element to the book.
I think it's that...
Based on a bra.
Yeah, but I think it's one of the most humiliating things that could happen to a 16-year-old girl when her boyfriend, the guy she likes, is coming to save her. But also, I think it goes to the state of, like, she's barely eaten. She's had no water, almost. And she's been walking for hours. Like, she 100% could have taken it off.
I was going to say maybe it was, like, a delirium thing or opium den.
She was in an opium den, yeah. So, I think it happened. It's just something you have to accept. And... It's
possible maybe she wasn't even really being chased. I don't know. I have no idea.
And I think that's part of it is, like, you almost feel that, like, frantic feeling. At least when I'm reading it, I like...
Oh, it was extremely frantic, yeah.
Which is the opposite of everything Vassar is.
Mm-hmm. No, anything that could happen in one person's entire life happens to her in a span of weeks. It's insane. It's fantastic.
So her life is saved. They return. She recovers. She drinks lots of water. She calls her parents. Again, her friends are like, no way this could happen. This is too over the top. Rein it in, Vassar. And she's like, just wait. She finds out Hanks is going to go to college in America. And I guess we didn't talk about that a lot, but their relationship basically goes from, like, he's annoying as heck to, like, but cute to, like, endearing and then, like, oh, maybe I like him.
Also, the sideburns are fake.
Oh, yeah.
He walks out of the bathroom saying, like, I'm going to shave, but it's like the reverse. I'm like, well, you didn't shave. You put sideburns on.
Yeah.
But okay.
And what's interesting is all of those Polaroids and different things that Grandma Gerd has, like, acquired during these trips, she turns into a collage for Vassar. So one of Stick Girl's sticks is on there.
Mm-hmm.
What else did she steal? The Polaroids that Hanks has been taking. One of Hank's sideburns is on there. Just one. So he's lopsided. I don't know.
I'm sure he has more than one set.
And some other things. And by that point, Vassar's like, genuinely like, I'm going to hang this above my bed.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I appreciate it. And she, at the end of the book, has this whole new life plan.
Yeah, I can honestly say it's very impressive. I mean, obviously, personal growth and character development is part of a good story.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like the definition of this book. Like, it's done so well, and you feel every tiny little detail of it.
Mm-hmm.
every step, every breath, every insane scenario. And by the end, it's impressive how well done the personal growth is for this character.
Yeah, I think that Vassar has only known one way of life. And she sees not only that it's okay to, like, just go with the flow, but she also sees this tiny 5-year-old girl living in an opium den.
Mm-hmm.
She sees people, the veteran amputee homeless guy without any legs.
Food and bathroom situations.
She experiences all these things and comes out on the other side going, hey, there's a middle ground. Like, she still has her list of, like, this is what I'm going to do. But, like, on the list is, you know, buy Hank new cowboy boots. And because she accidentally makes him give him up.
Basically, instead of having plans that only involve the future, she has day-to-day steps. Like, she needs to enjoy the moment while also having a plan for the future.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is a good, solid plan for anyone. Nothing here is mind-blowing. She just had to learn a very hard and difficult way around.
Well, and also just, like, you know, apply to schools other than Vassar.
Which,
like,
yeah.
That's okay.
I still hate that. I still hate that. Her name is so bad.
I know. But also, she's like, especially look for schools around Wyoming.
But I think she
wherever.
does say by the end, unless I'm totally making this up, she decides to tell everyone to call her, including her friends, her friend's Pawnee name.
Yeah.
And she wants to get it legally changed again.
Yeah. So she, when she's talking to her parents for the first, or like about to come home, and of course her dad's like, you know, in the email, make sure to confirm your time so that I know the best, most efficient route to get to the airport to pick you up at this time. And she's just like, hey, by the way, like, I think I want to go by a different name. And her parents are like, but Vassar, or no, but Spore is such a fine name, or suffix or something. They say something weird about it. And she's like, no, I'm talking about Vassar. I think I'd like to go by Frangipani. And her mom is immediately like, what did she tell you? and then she's like, yeah, Dad, you're right. This call's been very long. I'm sure it's very expensive. And fully hangs up on them.
Oh, yeah. Complete.
I love it.
Cut off.
But she plans to spend every summer with Grandma Gerd. Grandma Gerd's going to come visit her. She's fully dating Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
In my brain, they're married, and they have little Eurasian children.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to follow up because this book is really good. But in a follow-up, I think you can kind of... It'd be very interesting. I'd like to see what they do next, but we don't need it. This is a really good, solid single book.
So, do you have any other things before we jump to ratings?
I'm just looking through my notes for last things. I think we talked everything that I had on here. Yeah, I touched it all. So, no, we covered it all.
So, I will go first. Everyone knows if you listen to any episode of the podcast, I only read books more than once if they are rated 5 stars. This is 5 stars. I've literally read it every year for a decade. There's something about it that is just so fun for me. And like I said, I am somewhere in between. I'm not as crazy as Vassar, but I'm not as living in the moment as Grandma Gerd. I'm somewhere in between. But when I was 16, I was probably way closer to Vassar side of things.
I can see it. Yeah. So you gave it a 5.
Yep.
I gave it a 4 out of 5. I still think that I want to bump it up to a 5 out of 5. I've said this before, like whenever I'm borderline, like, 4, 5, then I probably shouldn't give it a 5 because I'm questioning something. Yeah. Whatever I'm questioning, I can't explain. I think this book could be a 5, but I think right now I have it as a 4 on Goodreads. Mm-hmm. And I think that I could see myself reading this book again.
Oh,
yeah.
That excites me so much.
Yeah,
I don't think
like,
you know.
I think in a few years, it'd be like, I'd listen to that again. It's not a hard listen. It's not the longest book in the world.
No, it's very quick.
I love the way the narrator talks.
I now have to listen to it, by the way.
I think you really should. I just love the voices, but especially the 3 friends. But there's certain books just come along where, like, the journey is just so fun and interesting that you can do it again. It's... Like, it's not Harry Potter level of, I've read those books literally 50 times. But it's like, I can see why you revisit this, and I could do that.
Yeah. And again, it's very quick. It's very easy.
And as someone who wants to travel, I'm not saying this is my ideal trip because it's terrifying. But I was like, kind of jealous. I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, this would be just a fun, like, just different experience.
An all-expense-paid vacation to 3 Asian countries when you're 16? Yes,
yeah,
please.
yeah, that's what got me. I wrote that down. Actually, I did write that down. I was the jealous of the grandma and the money situation, but I was just like, oh my god, like they take more than one flight to multiple places, and they go to multiple stops. And I'm like, this grandma's got money. And then we realize the art situation. I'll have enough money for a year. I'll never work all 365 days. I'm like, okay, well. So, yeah, that was awesome. And there was a little bit of jealousy, but it was really cool to see all of that. They go to Singapore at some point, right? Or they have to pass through Singapore? Like, that's where the airport is?
Yeah.
Yeah, Singapore is somewhere I really want to visit, like the main city. So, yeah, that was just fun to listen to.
And I think, too, it's... because it is a book for children, I guess, or like teenagers.
The teenage, yeah.
I feel like you just don't, like, they talk about historical things, and they talk about, and it's not, I've read a lot of this level book, you know. It's not something, you don't read about the jungles of Cambodia very often.
Nope.
So, in a novel like this.
Nope.
So I think it's fun.
Yeah, it definitely took a different approach to a lot of young adult books that I read.
Yeah.
A lot more serious. And actually, I was thinking about this as we were talking. Of all the young adult books that I've read, which is a lot.
Same.
I think they have only ever been sci-fi or fantasy. This is my first, unless it was like required school reading that I don't remember. This is like my first like grounded young adult fantasy that didn't have like dragons or spaceships. Like,
yeah.
I don't, magic, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's...
Besides the magic bra.
Yeah. The miracle. That's one of her notes is like, read more about God and miracles. Is like one in her life plan, which I think is great because she's like, I'm going to figure out this bra situation.
Yeah, so that was interesting. I was like, oh yeah, this is actually a first for me.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
I mean, that is very exciting. I'm glad you liked it. I was nervous. I definitely, I debated for a long time what book we were going to do.
Well, I mean, as you know, I'm like the easiest person ever. You could give me the girliest book or the most vampire-rific book. I know you love all your vampires. I'll read anything. And part of what's fun about the podcast so far is like all the different experiences I've gotten so far with books that I would never have read on my own.
Yeah.
Like I like broadening my horizons a little bit here. This is like, if you look at this book, if you see the physical cover,
the cover's ugly.
It is ugly, and it's it's very, I don't want to call it, I mean, it's not necessarily girly, but it has this girly look to it as like the silhouette of a black silhouette of a girl, and it's kind of goldeny and sparkly, and it's, if I saw that in a store, I would not open the flap to read the description. No. So to know that this story was in that cover is kind of like wild to me. Yeah. It's very interesting. Like, I'm reading a lot of new things here. It's
definitely one of those, like, don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah. Because now, I don't know what made me pick it up at 16.
The cover. I don't know.
Maybe.
It's a weird cover. It doesn't tell you anything about this book.
It might actually have just been that it said Carpe Diem, and I actually have a cousin who speaks Latin. And that might have been it.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's very cool.
Awesome. Well, I am so pleased that you didn't hate it and that you actually liked it. Because I was very nervous because it's a little piece of who I am, I think.
Well, that was my same issue with Hitchhiker's Guide. I was like, Jesse reading Hitchhiker's Guide, that sounds really, like, I was waiting for the halfway through the book text of like, what if I do not finish? Because I've gotten that text before. What if I DNF? And be like, well, then we do a different book. But I was like, she's going to read the first third of this and be like, what nonsense have you gotten me into? Like,
well, I was just living in the moment.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll book swap again. Yeah. It was fun.
I
want to read more.
I already know because I was literally debating between two.
Yeah.
And it was this and one that is the start of a trilogy.
And I think you had me pick, like, at random.
Well, no, I think I went back and forth with you a couple times of like, should I just do? And then I finally decided.
You did something random and you're like, you're getting either
I know what I did. I did a dice generator.
Yeah, I knew it was something. You said you're getting one of two very different things. Either this young adult Carpe Diem book, or what was the other one you described as?
It's about trolls.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because it was Trolls, so it was more fantasy, more my speed. So you're like, you're gonna get the one maybe more your speed, or like this really grounded, weird young adult like me kind of book that you're probably not gonna like.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, whatever you pick, I don't care. It's the book that you want me to read.
I know. Well, because I think they're both books I've read as a teenager that I literally have a shelf of like, these are books that have made who I am kind of thing. And look, I just was staring at them like, it's one of these two, Trolls or planning.
Well, here was my problem with deciding a book to give you. First of all, luckily Hitchhiker's Guide was short.
Yeah.
And it actually is one of my favorite books. But I was looking at my shelf of books that I physically own because I also didn't want to make you buy anything if you didn't have to. I would have like lended you something. But I was like, ooh, see, a lot of my favorite books are like 800 pages, and that would be unfair. Don't know if I can do that to her. She'll need like a solid month to get through this insanely high-end like fantasy novel.
Well, speaking of 800 pages, our next book is about 800 pages.
But is it, to be fair?
But it has graphic novel situations happening. So we are going to be reading The Explorers Guild by Kevin Costner. Mm-hmm. It's not the actor, right?
I also could not remember that. I should probably Google that.
I wonder if it's the actor. That's an actor.
I don't know.
I'm going to look it up.
So I don't know what your copy of the book looks like. I know you ordered something.
Yeah, it's very pretty. I can show you.
Is it hardcover?
I don't know.
So the book, I'm going to describe the book briefly. We'll get into it more. It looks very old-fashioned and papery, and the pages themselves are very browned and aged. And it's a mix between a story, like actual words, and then a graphic novel. And it's an adventure story about a group of explorers, and there is this very old-fashioned secret guild, whatever, and they're trying to find the lost city of Shambhala, basically.
I'm so glad you said that word instead of me.
What, Shambhala?
I don't know.
I don't know much about it. I'm about 50 pages in, which isn't saying much because half of that was comic.
Is it a quick read so far for you? Or like moving pretty well?
No, I have a very specific thought on whether or not it's a quick read, but it's for the actual podcast.
Okay.
There's something about the writing that I want to talk about.
Oh, no.
Not necessarily in a bad way. It depends on how you like your books to come off the page. But I think I will get used to it, and we'll see how it goes.
I'm sure I'll message you in 3 days with some sort of feedback.
It is interesting. It is pretty. It has very beautiful artwork. Some are kind of same in the tones, and some are very colorful. But it'll be fun. Yeah,
I'm excited. We have a lot of exciting books coming up, and I think we should add, after the set we already have, another swap, because I'll be in probably 6 months.
Yeah, maybe we just do quarterly swaps or something. I don't know. That'd be cool.
Because I had a lot of fun with this.
But at some point, that means you're ending up with a big book.
That's okay.
We should swap our biggest books at some point. You're like, mine is 400 pages.
Yeah, mine's probably not that big. Actually, no, it would be Zodiac Academy.
I'm going to give you a Brandon Sanderson novel at some point, but not a crazy one.
No, I'm interested in reading them, but I am, because I do watch a lot of BookTube and Book Talk, and they talk about Brandy Sandy a lot, and how big the books are. I'm just intimidated.
His first two aren't as big as the other ones.
Okay, well, I'm intimidated, and so if you gave me one and was like, I know you can handle this.
And I won't start you off with a series. I'll give you a standalone.
Yeah, because I just don't know. But I hear so many good things. So, and you're doing side quests on them.
Yep.
So I think that'll help me not feel so intimidated.
Sounds good. I don't know which ones are already out by the time you listen to this, but I've at least recorded 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah, so definitely check those out. And I think I will be making a side quest for some of the books that I have read recently.
Okay.
Especially the Southerner's Guide to Slaying Vampires.
That'll be a curious one.
So, thanks for listening. Please rate and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us at Paper Quest Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Leave us a comment so we know what books you're reading, especially if you have any favorites, and what you'd like to hear us talk about in the future.
Check out the $1 Patreon for early access to episodes and to support the show. And email us questions, comments, recommendations, etc. at paperquestpod@gmail.com. And until next time.
Bye.
Bye.